What's the tea on whaling? We'll tell you that on this episode.
We get some rum and beer expensive, put in a reindeer, so you know we're gonna party.
Welcome to the Marine Conservation Happy Hour. This is Dr. Scarlett Smash, and you know what I love? I love listening to the gossip. Not that I'm part of it. I just like listening to it because I think it's very entertaining. And I'm never involved in the actual gossip. Like, I'm usually part of the gossip that people are talking about, but I'm never actually involved in it. Now, Dr. Kraken, you are the gossip queen.
I am such a gossip. I'm dreadful.
Oh my God, you're the gossip queen. Like, you'll know everything that's happening in the science field, conservation field, and it's a small world. So then anyone that's involved in the industry kind of gets to hear what's going on. Unfortunately, no one tells me the gossip. So when I hear it, I'm like, oh, goody, goody, goody. Tell me, because no one wants to involve me. But we have Rob. Rob, would you like to do a quick introduction? Because we're going to talk about whaling gossip.
Yeah, I'm Rob Reed, and I lead Neptune's Pirates UK, the UK marine conservation charity that particularly focuses on the whale and dolphin hunts in the North Atlantic, this whole region around the UK, north of the UK.
And we've become very attached to you, by the way. We don't want you to ever leave. It's like so amazing having you on the show, even though you constantly are telling us very sad things. I'm still like, let's bring Rob back on. Let's bring him on. Let's bring him on. Let's go. Let's keep on going.
Unfortunately, all my work for the last sort of 13 odd years has been involving dead, specifically hunted, harpooned or dabbed, shot animals. But that's unfortunately the nature of the work I'm in right now, because I live in the sort of epicenter of the world for whaling and dolphin hunts here in Scotland.
Well, not all of us can do it. You can do it. And it's incredible. And we thank you so much. So we're going to make sure we keep like having blessings and good energy to you, because you're doing the work of a lot of us that we can't do. Dr. Kraken, do you know any whale gossip going on? I just want to know if you know it, because of course Rob definitely is very involved in knowing.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, there's been a lot over the years. I mean, I started getting involved in the International Whaling Commission in the days when people used to have to sweep their hotel rooms because they were worried about being bugged.
Ah!
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Totally agree with that.
They will try and find gossip on you and get PR companies to try and badmouth you. For example, some of the New Zealand delegation who were very, very effective back in the day. The Japanese government got this PR company to say that they were being racist and anti-Maori and cause them all sorts of issues. Oh, there was a whole bunch of dirty dealing going on back in the day. It was really like a sort of CIA bag of dirty tricks that was going on.
Even with the government was involved?
Oh God, yeah, the Japanese government, yeah, because they were the ones who were sponsoring the whaling, and a lot of the sponsorship for the whaling was because of political issues. They didn't really care about whales. What they cared about was whales as a bargaining chip for other fisheries, like tuna. So whenever there was a tuna quota coming up, they would say, right, we're going to catch, all these endangered whales in Antarctica, because they knew the UK and New Zealand and Australia would get up in arms about it. And the MPs would get lots of complaining letters for the constituents. And so they make a deal, okay, well, give us the tuna that we want, which is, far more economically valuable. Plus also, back in the days, they were still bitter about World War II. They can't really do anything else on the international stage against the UK and Australia and the US and so on, because they were big trading partners and whatever. But this is one thing where they could really, really annoy them and try and get them back for World War II. So there's a whole lots of sort of dirty shenanigans going on back in the day, 20-something years ago.
A lot of, it started off as rumours of bribery.
Yes.
And turned to actual proof.
Oh, yeah, that's
People
true.
admitted openly they were being paid by the Japanese government to become IWC members and vote on Japan's side. Even if you're a country with no coastline, like Mongolia, for instance, you turn up and vote for Japan.
There were drug and prostitute parties for fisheries
Stop!
delegates from
This is
different
so good.
countries that were being
No
paid
way.
for by Japan, and
Absolutely.
then slightly more reputable, they would pay for the kids of these ministers and these representatives to go to fancy schools in Japan and
Hmm.
paid for trips. But they actually got photos of literally Japanese representatives coming in with big wadges of cash and
Hmm.
even paying for their IWC fees in
Yeah.
cash, in like bundles of cash, which the IWC turned around eventually and said, no, you have to have pay from an official government bank account. We're not going to take brown paper envelopes clearly from Japan to pay your IWC membership fees anymore.
That's exactly what was going on. And the first time I went to an IWC meeting, of course, not let in the meeting because we're all banned from attending personally, but protesting outside. I was friends with Sidney Holt.
Oh, bless Sydney. He was wonderful.
He was absolutely wonderful gentleman, and staying in the same hotel with him. So I spent quite a lot of time talking to him in the evenings. But he actually said to us, he said, part of that we had actually had armed guards keeping us away from the IWC meeting in Madeira in 2009. He said, you do know that the Japanese delegation have at least 15 people here dedicated to researching who you are and what you do. Like literally identifying us as we stand outside the IWC meeting and protest against them. And that kind of sort of spying operation on activists continued for a good number of years. We even caught people photographing us at events here in the UK.
Mm.
So, there's that. So the Japanese bribery in particular was well renowned. It was almost like a standing joke, if you like. And when Japan left the IWC and quit their shambolic so-called scientific whaling in Antarctica, it's left the IWC in dire financial straits as well, because they haven't got the money coming in, because not only did Japan leave, but funnily enough, all the countries they paid to turn up to vote for them also stopped turning up as well.
Japan still goes as an observer.
Oh, as an observer,
They're
yes.
not officially allowed to speak, but they do anyway. So,
But yes, to think that the whalers of the world are a united bunch, they certainly are not.
Yeah, I would think they're all friends.
Yeah, well, they make out they're friends. I mean, the North Atlantic Marine Mammal Commission, which I've mentioned before, which are the people who try to ensure that whaling and dolphin hunts continue in the North Atlantic region, my kind of geographical area, they make out that they're all united and they can find, good sustainability, that word, reasons of why whale and dolphin hunts should continue and why this is a product that can be used in the future to ensure food security. And they make out it's a big happy family of whalers, but it isn't really a big happy family of whalers because they actually despise each other generally.
oh, I've heard some of the Norwegians say some really, really rude things about the
Yes.
Japanese.
Oh, come on, tell us. Tell us.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you get a Norwegian in a bar and a few drinks down them, then they start to not spill the tea, spill the beer.
Well, the Norwegian whalers see themselves as the most professional, the superior whalers. And there is some justification in that because there was actually a paper published on the efficiency of whale hunting techniques and explosive grenades. Really fun scientific paper, that, which compared how efficient and humane different whalers were. And it brought up the fact that the Japanese whalers' accuracy on their harpoons is shocking, terrible. They're hitting whales all over the place, from the tail to the head. That's why whales are suffering so much from Japanese harpoons. And Japan even relied on whales that were shot in the tail. They used to drag the whale to the ship with that harpoon in its tail and lift the tail to try and drown the whale to kill it because they couldn't kill it with harpoons.
Yeah, and in Greenland, they famously videoed whales taking 3 to 5 hours to die in the whaling industry there.
That's right. I mean, they were using there's all kinds of other techniques. You use more traditional techniques, which are also horrific in their own way, from various types of harpoons to what they call whale bombs, which is basically throwing grenades at whales in the hope that they'll die. So you have all these things going on, but certainly Norwegian whalers see themselves as the best at whaling. The Icelanders sort of somewhere a little bit behind them. But even though they make out they're this big cozy family, and the Faroese dolphin hunts, the Grinderdrap, the Faroe Islands participate in NAMCO as well. And in fact, Christian Lofson, the guy behind the fin whaling in Iceland, has actually been showing far more of an interest in the Faroese dolphin hunts recently. Has been sitting on NAMCO panels discussing that, trying to prove that the dolphin hunts are sustainable and trying to research new ways to sell dolphins to the world, But there's no love lost between these groups. We made friends with a rather interesting gentleman who is a former whaler in Iceland and still lives not too far away from the whaling station. And we used to chat to him and pose questions to him about things we saw going on at the Icelandic whaling station during the butchering of the whales, and what were various things that we saw and what these process. And we got lots of really, really good information out of this guy. And then one night he said to me, he got a beer for us. He said, "Hey, come to my house, come to my house." And he turned on his computer and I see him signing into one of remember these old-fashioned forum sites where everyone has a little profile picture and writes a little bit in there. And he was scrolling through this forum, which was clearly an Icelandic whaler forum. So people who work for the whaling company. And he was scrolling through these posts, and we saw images of us as activists, photographing them, the whalers, because they photograph us as much as we photograph them and video them. And you could see their sort of disparaging comments against us and their anger against us. And he said, no. He says, "I want to show you this." And it was actually the Icelandic whalers started up a discussion about the Faroese Grinderdrap, the dolphin hunts in the Faroe Islands. And it wasn't the Icelandic whalers saying, united with the Faroese because they had the same activists. Our group, Neptune's Pirates UK, as we used to be Sea Shepherd UK, they weren't united in the fact that they're being opposed by the same activist group. The Icelandic whalers were actually criticizing the Faroese for continuing to kill pilot whales and dolphins as a sport, for killing them unprofessionally, for killing them inhumanely, for the disgusting sort of scenes of hundreds of pilot whales and dolphins killed at a time. For what? Is not being done for money, which is why the Icelandic whalers operate. It's not being done to feed the people because the Faroese don't need it, because they're rich and they don't need whale or dolphin, let alone polluted whale or dolphin as a food. The Icelandic whalers are actually being almost supportive of our campaign to end the Faroese Grinderdrap because they saw it as cruel, unnecessary sport, and therefore wasn't worthy of their support in turn.
I can't even process
it's
this.
like fox hunters complaining about badger hunters.
My brain is hurting. I'm not understanding the logic of this.
So what you actually have in the world is Norwegian whalers who think they're superior to everyone else. The Icelanders not far behind. Everyone seems to hate the Faroese and the Japanese for being so cruel and so unprofessional at everything that they do. And meanwhile, there's a circle back, because in Norway, 90% of the minke whales they kill are pregnant females.
Oh.
And so there is a circle of criticism even within the whaling world, and they show a united public front. But in reality, they don't approve of what any of each other do.
I am just so confused. Okay, has there been any bar brawls between them?
I could imagine there being, but none that I know of. And I've certainly never shared a bar with them.
I wouldn't want to go up against some of those.
No, that's what I'm saying. They're very aggressive. I mean,
Norwegian
you would think
guys.
if you're in that kind of industry, you're killing, you're throwing a bunch of bombs, whatever you're doing, testosterone is like really, really high. Okay. That's a good question. Like, are there women on these ships, or is it just men?
I've never seen women on board as the Icelandic ships. I'm not sure about the Norwegian ships.
Right.
There are a very few women who work at the whaling station in Iceland, but it is a primarily male-dominated industry. And in the Faroe Islands, it is an entirely male activity. At the most, a Faroese female may hold the end of a rope to drag in a pilot whale. And that's about as close as they get to taking part in those hunts.
So here you get a bunch of aggressive men in a bar,
Mm-hmm.
and then but probably are having a brawl. I'm just saying.
You never know.
Yeah, with the scientists, there's also a rivalry as well, because I know that, for example, the Norwegian scientists often complain about the Japanese scientists having poor science and illogical arguments and no statistics. Because a lot of the scientists that are attending the IWC are, university scientists, and they actually do research and they publish papers. And then the Japanese just publish in their in-house magazine effectively and say, look at all the great science that we're doing.
Yes, and you're right. Most of it isn't internationally peer reviewed for a very good reason, because it never passed. And in fact, Christian Lofson himself, who, by the way, apart from being the world's most notorious whaler and killing fin whales, the second largest whale on the planet, sees himself as a conservationist, because he thinks this, very old-fashioned opinion this is, he thinks there are far, far too many whales, and therefore he is actually making sure the population is healthy by harpooning 140 or so every summer. And also, the more whales he kills, he thinks, there'd be way more fish for us to catch as well. So I'm also improving Iceland's and the human population's food security as well by killing whales. And of course, we know all that is absolute garbage, absolute nonsense these days. The simple fact is, the more whales there are in the ocean, then the more productive the ocean is, and the more fish there are. It's not the other way around. And we know that for a fact these days. And yet they perpetuate this myth that whales eat fish, and therefore the more whales we eat, the more fish there'll be. And in fact, Lofson himself and one of the Japanese whalers has often referred to whales disparagingly, even calling them cockroaches of the ocean, something to be exterminated.
Yes, I remember that. There's also been quite a controversy with British scientists working with whalers, and then taking samples and taking their data and publishing it, or being funded by the whalers, even though it's arguably against the law for them to do that. And that caused a lot of controversy back in the day.
Having worked for a university myself, I know the reasons why is that if they want to do whale research, then a lot of scientists find themselves cooperating with the whalers to be able to do their research, but also become reliant in part on them for funding and cooperation as well. And ironically, some of the scientists are even possibly helping perpetuate whaling.
Oh no, that's so twisted.
Yeah, as a fact, it is very, very twisted. We ought to just draw a line under it and say no more whaling, no more dolphin hunts.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, that's good. Well, I feel a little bit good. It's kind of enjoyable knowing that, they're not kumbaya with each other.
Definitely are not.
I can see Smash thinking there, okay, how am I going to start a barroom brawl at the IWC?
Exactly. And just sit there and be like, oh, look at them. They're these mean people.
Did you hear what Sven said
all
about?
Just going at each other. Yeah.
At the beginning of every Icelandic whaling season, we watched them load the harpoon and do some test firings to check their accuracy. And we're always hopeful that you get that. There's funny comedy scenes where somebody puts their head down a cannon to have a look inside, and somebody sets it off.
Yeah. Those unfortunate accidents.
I've always been hopeful there'd be an unfortunate accident with a harpoon gun and Christian Lofson, but unfortunately it hasn't happened yet.
Oh, yes, that's true. That's true. Yeah. Oh my God. Anyways, okay, I was just daydreaming about how wonderful it would be if they were all fighting with each other. Hey, did you know that he just shagged your wife? Okay, well, I'm glad that we were able to have a little bit of a laugh. It's been kind of sad, but it's important information. So let's go to the next episode. I think we have more to talk about, Dr. Kraken. With
Absolutely,
Rob, right?
absolutely. Yeah. We have Rob, so we're not letting you go, Rob.
No, you're with us forever.
But please, can you tell the listeners where to find you and your organization?
So we've got a new name. It's Neptune's Pirates UK. So our web address is really simple, neptunespirates.uk on the web, or search for us on all the main social media channels, not X or Twitter. We are protesting it for obvious reasons right now.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for being here, and we will be back. Thank you so much for listening, and thank you so much for being part of the Marine Conservation Happy Hour community. Hey, Marine Conservation Happy Hour crew, don't forget to hit subscribe and follow us for future episodes. And also, refer us. We'd love it. We would also like to hear from you, so please contact us on social media, or you can email us about a topic that you're interested in hearing about. If you're interested in sponsoring this podcast, or you would like us to come visit your science facility and do a live episode, email us at info@absolutelysmashingllc.com. This podcast was edited and produced by Absolutely Smashing. The music is produced by Jolly Shore Leave. Thank you again for listening, and we couldn't do this without you. Thank you so much for being part of the Marine Conservation Happy Hour crew.